want to look at today is, sorry for it to be echoey, I'm in a bit of an empty office, is the Fibonacci staking plan. Now this is something that somebody commented on in one of my YouTube videos, underneath one of the YouTube videos, recently, asking if I could look at the Fibonacci stakes. So it's another type of increasing stakes. So it's another way of recouping your losses by staking more on your next bet when your initial bet loses. So it's different to increasing stakes. By increasing stakes is a set sort of increase. So you're always increasing 1.5 times your stake every time you lose. Whereas with the Fibonacci, now the easiest way of showing you is just on this website, shout out to the staking machine. So the Fibonacci staking plan looks at quite an interesting way of staking. So you add together the two numbers of your previous two bets to get your third bet. So if we have a look at what that means, so you're looking at, if you're betting £10, you'll bet £10 until you lose, and then you'll bet £20. So for the first time, it's just a double increment. And then if you win at £20, you go back to step one. But if you lose, you bet £30 because that's £20 plus £10 equals £30. If you win, you return to step one. But if you lose, you bet £50 because it's £30 plus £20 equals £50. You see the pattern. And the only time you need to sort of take notice then is you return two steps prior when you win, rather than going all the way back to the start, which is something that I made a mistake on when doing the spreadsheet initially. I went all the way back to the first stake when winning, I reset it back to the start like you do with increasing stakes. But with the Fibonacci stakes, as you can see, with each win, you reduce your bets by 2 steps down. So if you get to, here you go, if you get to sort of £80, so you return to step 3 if you win. So you go back to here. You don't go back to the start, you go back to there. So it'll probably make more sense once we get into the spreadsheet. So what I've done is I've applied it to our August result sheet, which is the same result sheet that you've seen many times with the increasing stakes and the level stakes. And this time we've added Fibonacci stakes at the end of it. So if we have a look, we're looking at 3 different staking sort of start points like we do with the other two to make it consistent. So we can start at £2, £10 and £20. And as you can see, in the first sort of instance, not much changes to the increasing stakes because you don't go back 2 places until you get to the 4th bet or 5th bet. So we're looking at a £2 stake. I've added the stakes in to make it easier. A £2 stake and it won, so it's returning £4.90 because the odds were £2.45. Not much going on here, -2. So -2, -4 because 2 plus 1. No, hang on, -2. Am I on the Fibonacci one here or not? Yeah, sorry, -2. Should it be -4? -2. Yeah, sorry, because you're doubling it, aren't you? God, so sorry, we're not on the, we're doubling the first, but the first bet's 2, we lose, we go to £4, which is double. So as you can see, we're only losing 1 at a time here, so we're only going 2s and 4s. So it's not until we get to down here where we're going up to 6, and that's because 4 plus 2 is 6, so we're staking 6. And then we lose that one, we're looking at 6 plus 4, which is 10, so we're staking 10. And the next one, 10 plus 6, which is 16, so we're staking £16, and that one won. So that one we returned £32 because the odds were 2.0, and we put £16 on, returns 32. You're with me so far? This took me a long time, and as you can see, I've left notes. So on the next one, we won the 5th bet to return to stake 3. So we return to the 3rd stake now because we're going 2 steps back. So instead of going straight back to the start, we return into the 3rd stake in this instance, which was £6, as you can see, 1, 2, 3. So we're going to the 3rd stake, which is £6, and he got that there, and it won, which was 3.1. So that brings us back down to here, which is back down to £2. 2 times 1.7 is £3.40. And then we carry on going, and as you can see, we go back and forward with the £2 and the £4 a little bit more. And then there's not much to report until we get further down. Why don't we just skip down to where it gets interesting? So we've gone up to £6 the most we've got to so far. And then here we can see this is when the Fibonacci starts really sort of differing to the increasing stakes method. So we've got -2, -4, minus 6, 4 plus 2 equals 6, minus 10, and then we go further than we have had to before. We had minus 16 with that 1, so then minus 26, so we've got 10 plus 16, 26, and then we've got 26 plus 16, 42, 42 plus 26, 68, and then 68 plus 42, 209, 110, and that one won. So when that one wins, we then go back down to, because that was the 9th bet, we go back to the 7th, which is 42. So 42, that one at evens to give us 84. And then because that one won, we go back down again to the 5th stake, which was 16. You can see, I'm sorry if it's a bit exhausting. It is for me as well. That's right to put these little notes on. So we can see what's going on anyway. And then we can see we get another big one here. And we didn't lose as many bets to get to here, but because we're not starting from 0 when we're not starting from the first bet when we sort of win and go back 2 spaces anymore, it's quite quick to get up to here. So we actually got to the 9th again. So we won the 9th bet to return back to the 7th here. And yeah, as you can see, it's pretty interesting. And so we get down to the end and we can see that if you multiply this by 5 to get your £10 starting stakes, so 2 times 5, and then you multiply it by 10 to get your £20 starting stakes, and then the same Fibonacci all the way through. That's just the sound of my son running on some gravel. So you can see this is how we get the ROI. So we're looking at, if you add all of this up, all of your stakes, in the £2 startings, we're getting 1,064 is what you've staked throughout the duration of those games, throughout the month, 65 matches. And we've got £621 profit. And then it's just times by, like I say, it's times by 5, times by 10. It works out at 58% ROI. So, I mean, if you're doing it with £20 start, you'd be looking at £6,216 profit at the end of the month. But the outlay was 10,600, so it's still going to be 58% ROI, but it's a big old outlay. And there's your outlays if you did it at the other starting stakes. So yeah, it's interesting. It's just another way of staking. I'm all for looking at all the different staking methods, showing them to you, and you deciding what you want to do depending on your stake. Always put a stop loss in, as I've mentioned before. This is no different. I'd still put a stop loss in it. I mean, with this one, I'd possibly put it in a little bit earlier. So instead of 10, I'd probably say 8, 6 or 8, depending on your preference. I'd probably put in a stop loss in there and then returning back to the start if I were to use this. I've never used it. I haven't got any plans on using it just yet, but it's something I might consider in the future. I don't know. So if we look, if we compare it to the increasing stakes, we can see that increasing stakes, I've put the stakes in here as well. So these are going up in 1.5 increments every time we do need to go up. So it's not going to get as high as the Fibonacci. And basically I've sort of had a look at that and done the ROI on that. And the ROI on the increasing stakes method at 1.5 is 35%. So it's quite a big difference between the Fibonacci and the increasing stakes 1.5, but the outlay is a lot less as well. So even at the highest sort of tier at £20, you're looking at 3,200 compared to 10,000. So, you know, it's horses for courses really. It depends on what your start bank is and what your risk tolerance is, I guess. So that's 35%, 58%. And then, I mean, for the sake of comparison, we can compare it to level stakes, and we're at 30% with level stakes. And obviously the outlay is a lot less. So there's been no need to add in the stakes because they don't vary obviously. So it's £2, £10, £20, 65 games, so £130 for this one, £260 for £10, and £650 sorry, for £10, and then £1,300 for 20. And if we take the profit and do the usual calculations, we get an ROI of 30% for increasing stakes. So I mean, what I would say is you're only as good as your system. That's the wrong colour. you're only as good as the system that you're using, so you've got to have confidence in this, in the system, in your selections. It doesn't have to be a system in your selections. It doesn't have to be a paid for system. It just has to be the selections. You've got to make sure you trial them, make sure that they work, and you've got confidence in them. You've got enough data to back that up, and then you can start looking at your staking. But having a fancy staking method, a staking plan, isn't going to do you any good if you lose every game, or your ROI, your strike rate is terrible. So get that sorted first, make sure you've got confidence in what you're doing, and then you can play with your ROI, your different ROIs for your different systems, and try and staking plans, and try and increase that as you go along. You can do a hybrid between the two. You don't have to do a pure Fibonacci. You could change the Fibonacci so that you do a different stop loss, or you could sort of, one of the things that I did when I first did the spreadsheet, as I mentioned earlier, was instead of going back to 2 spaces before, I actually went all the way back. And I think, from what I remember, I think the final figure came out at about, I think the big one was about 4,000. It was a couple of grand less. It was still profitable, but it meant that instead of going back to, so here for example, instead of going back to 42, you'd have been going all the way back to 2, and you would have been keeping doing that. It's not the true Fibonacci, but there's stuff you can play with, isn't there? So yeah, I hope you find it interesting anyway. There's a few other staking plans that I'll probably have a look at in the future. I'm not endorsing this, I'm not saying you should or shouldn't do it, I'm just showing you 3 examples. And I think it's quite interesting, and anyone with the bank that is big enough and the sort of discipline to do it, let me know in the comments if you've tried it, and I'll be interested to sort of gather your comments. Thanks again. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.